Okay, point of information. Spiritual master or among your, God brothers, then it's understood. But otherwise, this is Guru Dev, so it's impersonal.
Get all the gurus of the disciples.
No, it's just, so that's the point of information. And some places get, I think at least by the last time I was there, they stopped in Vrindavan and then they go to temples because that's where he first said it actually. Who is this Guru Dev? Because impersonalist.
Kind of a generic for all the
Yeah. So we're having Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada. And he's not, on one level you could say, okay, so everything's true.
Yeah, I never do it. I do it after the
Actually, one time he was asked, so are you everybody's guru? He goes, no, I am everybody's servant. Anyway, as we all depart, a lot of this information is also going to depart.
How about they don't want much of the history like the Govinda was telling you were singing there.
Well, of course, the main voice is Jamuna. And that was a result, of course, of meeting George Harrison. And actually, it was George's idea, we said. We went to his house.
What inspired you?
And within 5 years, Shamsundar Meadow. I was just giving this little class yesterday, or the day before, about Prabhupada and George Harrison, just some of the interactions. And George commented, the first time I met Shamsundar, I liked him, there was a connection, because he was my pal. And it was that way until departure. In fact, he asked for Mukunda and Shamsundar to come when he was in California. Shamsundar just arrived in Vrindavan and he got the message. And I got him some, a nice charter from Harinam to take and some beads in case he didn't have him. So we flew right back to America. They weren't there at the final departure, but this is right toward it was happening. So he just had this very nice connection with devotees. So on the first meeting, he saw Shamsundar and he goes, "Where have you been, man? I've been waiting for you. I've been looking for you guys." And the backstory to that was in 1966 December in New York City, the few devotees that were there at the time, maybe weren't even sure they were devotees, but the early followers, went uptown to Times Square to a little recording studio along with Swamiji, as he was known at that point. And they recorded what was, the actual title was Krishna Consciousness, but the name of the label was Happening, so we always just, the Happening record, LP, long play. And they made that record. And even the producer, he was like, this is something different. This isn't your regular, this is music, it's meditation, it's prayer, and we got that much. So then a little time went by and they got 26 2nd Avenue. I think they had it already at that point, actually. So anyways, a letter comes to the temple, 26 2nd Avenue. And it was from Apple Records. That was the company that was producing the Beatles. They wanted 100 copies of that record.
Wow.
They had heard about it. They wanted 100 copies. That was a big deal at that point. So that was the connection where George really got his initial connection. And he was telling Mukunda and other because so they got that record. I was playing it. And him and John were taking a sailing trip. They were on a boat going around the Greek Isles. and they were chanting Hare Krishna, and it was like for 6 hours. They wouldn't stop. And he goes, if you stopped, it was like the lights went out. You just couldn't stop once you started chanting. So when we went to the UK, of course, we didn't know about that. And our mission plan in going was meet the Beatles and get them to chant Hare Krishna. And, you know, we're just like 6 adults and a little baby. I had a baby. And everybody in the world wanted to meet the Beatles, so, you know, what's our likelihood of coming over there unknown? We didn't know anybody in the UK, but we had this audacious plan. And we were trying anything to somehow get the attention of the Beatles. Like, we'd go to their office where it was. There'd be so many hundreds of people hoping maybe they would see a Beatle. And we'd go too. And we'd do things like leave a bag of cookie prasad. And our ultimate one, I don't know, we'd make an apple cake. Hare Krishna on the cake. Not a cake, sorry, pie, an apple pie. And then we saw at some tourist place, it was an apple, plastic apple with feet, and you'd wind it up and it would walk. So we got that little plastic apple and we stuck a little stick in it and made a little flag with the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. We opened the door to their office, winded it up, and we were getting desperate. Wanted to meet the Beatles. But for us, it wasn't about, we want to meet the Beatles. It was like not that kind of thing for us. We weren't in any respect overwhelmed or awed by the Beatles. You know, the mission was clear. If they would chant, the whole world would hear the mantra and chant. That was the point. Because you're studying Bhagavad Gita, so you understand what it says. What the great man does, the common man will follow. So at that time, due to the immense amount of fame they had, we knew if we could just get them to chant, that would kickstart everything. And we'd go out and do Harinam. There was this, maybe you've heard of this theater, a play, a drama called Hair. Anybody heard of that? Yeah. What's your hair sticking? Anyway, so like, it was some, you know, like, for the time, avant-garde thing down where all the theaters were. But they include,
It was historic, actually, yeah. This Hair performance in Broadway is historic.
Yeah, but this was in England.
Oh.
And that's, so they chanted Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Of course, they took off all their clothes when they chanted anyway. And we would stand outside the theater, so the Stafford or something like that. So when they would come out, exit there, we'd be chanting Hare Krishna. And we were just trying anything we could to like get the mantra out and maybe attract the Beatles. But as it so happened, some friends of ours from another rock band, they came over, the Grateful Dead. So their managers came, and they were friends for myself and Sham Sundar. Sham had gone to a school in Switzerland with one of the managers. So he goes, the other people that came with him were the Hells Angels. They brought their motorcycles and they were gonna go all around England, they're gonna go all around London. And London is just like these little tiny streets and these great big motorcycles, like they couldn't even like we were coming down yesterday, the road was so clogged up. At one point we were speeding along at 9 miles per hour. Well, it was kind of like that, trying to ride a Harley Davidson in London. You can't get in because it's little narrow winding streets. So they were not having a good time, the Hells Angel people. But somehow they had an appointment, through being musicians and everybody. By then, the Grateful Dead were known. They were more than just, a little group from the Ashbury. So Sham asked Rock, Rock Scully was the guy's name, hey, you mind if I tag along? No, come on. So when they got there, there was like this waiting room, and it was all filled with people who also had an appointment to meet the Beatles. So who knows who was going to meet the Beatles or not. And then a door opens and everybody's head looks, and actually one of the Beatles looks around and he just shoots through the room. He doesn't look right or left. There's another room at the end, and then the second one, third one, and the fourth one was George. And he shoots in the room, and suddenly Shyam Sundar, the only guy in the room with a bright, shiny bald head. In those days, it was during the Yellow Canary days, all the grihastras, men and women, we wore bright yellow saris and dhotis. So that's another story. So he sees Shyam Sundar and he does like about it. He goes up, "Where you been, man? I've been looking for you. Come on." And he takes Shyam Sundar inside. So the people that actually had the real appointments, including the Grateful Dead people, like they were left out, and suddenly Shyam was in. And so then they chat. He says, "Why don't you come to my place on Friday? We'll have dinner." And so suddenly we go from like being nobody's on the street, we're actually going to dinner at George Harrison's. And we had a couple of new boxes already, And so again, these kids were like, bug-eyed, like, what, But we get there, it's in a place called Ishar, part of London outskirts. And nothing belongs to us, right? It all belongs to Krishna. So even if you go to a very famous person's house, it doesn't belong to him, it belongs to Krishna. So we go, and we're serving Krishna, so we go and we just started rearranging all the furniture in the living room, like moving it back, moving the sofas, moving the chairs, so that we'd have kirtan space. So we had, a nice kirtan. We had Prashadam, George's wife at the time, Patty. I remember she made cucumber raita, so myself, Janaki, Jamuna, and Patty were cooking in the kitchen and have nice prashadam. And then George says, why don't we go out and back and have another kirtan? Now it's like dark, And there was a bit of a slope on the backyard, a little bit of a slope, so a nice view of the night sky. We had a nice kirtan. Now we're coming back inside, and suddenly George stops. We gotta make a record. That's how. And so we didn't even. We didn't have to ask anything, and that was a number one principle. We're not coming to beg, we're coming to give. So that was how that happened. We got that record, And George, you can hear who's playing in there. Or Hardy Vilas, he just arrived from France. He comes from an Armenian background, and he had this little mandolin. And so he just arrived, we're going to go to the studio, and Jamuna says, "Hey," she says, "why don't you come with us? We're going to go make a recording with the Beatles." Nobody knew we were going to do this. We didn't have internet in those days, thank God. So suddenly here's little, Harry Turanian, what? And then he had his little mandolin, and they asked him, play that. That was, I think, on that was on the Govindam. So during that time, big book distribution was just taking off, distributing books, and we're having competitions, and in America, the devotees were regularly, they'd call in, you couldn't text in at the bookstores, and Prabhupada would really be happy. We're over there in England, we don't have any books yet, but our records are selling. So we decided we'll send in our record scores. And the devotees were like, "Oh, wow, look at that. Kunda Shyam Sundar, Gurdas Malati, Janaki, they all go to the UK, meet the Beatles, and they're all in Maya." They're sending in our record scores. So, but then Prabhupada was reading the scores, and he was reading our scores out, so that was a little surprising to them. Prabhupada was appreciating the effort. He said in a letter to Mukunda once, and it was really appreciated, he said, "Just try to make this nice record with, George and the Beatles." He said, in any way we can to spread this Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada had that broad-mindedness, So then, when the record was made, we sent a copy. Prabhupada was in LA, and the devotees hid it. can we give this to Prabhupada? They didn't even listen to it. You know, like, how can we give this to, you know, there was Govinda, there was like, and Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So then, I guess maybe Sean or Mukunda wrote, did you get it? You know, because he hadn't answered and he would always respond, so it seems strange he wouldn't have said something. So then he's asking, did something come? Did something come from the devotees in London? Oh yeah, some record. Where is it? Play it. Oh, we don't have a phonograph, you know, like, get one. And but he heard the Govinda.
Making a little morning walk, and when he came in, they were playing.
Yeah, he heard the Govinda. He's making obeisances, dandavats. No, but he didn't hear, they weren't playing it in the temple yet.
Oh, I thought
When he heard it, he said, this must be played every morning, the deity greeting. And a little later, you know, so that kind of smashed the idea that we were all in Maya. Suddenly we actually became respected. and then, also then these young brahmacharis from New York, it was a small temple, you know, and it was like, so some of the brahmacharis complained to Prabhupada, why should we hear a woman singing? You know, Prabhupada shot, this is not a woman singing, this is devotee shot. It's a choir, you know, it's a choir, you know, we're all singing. He was like, if you don't like it, you can go to the forest. He said that on another occasion too. The men. So they were complaining about the women being in the temple room during japa, you know. So Prabhupada said, there's so many women in New York City. What are you going to do when you go outside? You close your eyes and walk into a wall? You know? If you're disturbed, go to the forest. Otherwise, just sit and chant Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone. Krishna is sending. We welcome everyone. And these are not ordinary women. They're devotees.
So you all didn't have any money, so I understand when you got there, when you sleep on the street.
Yeah, we didn't have, you know, we were tourists, so we couldn't work. Although, you know, you'd find off the record, but you know, Mukunda could do music transcript, you know, so he would get work transcribing music. Sean could do his carpentry thing, you know, so he found some kind of way, Guru Das. Well, like one time we were getting threatened by the police for doing Harinam. So we had this idea, okay, let's get arrested. And Guru Das will stand back and take pictures and we'll take them to the newspapers, and that will be another way to get some attention. So by that time we had the three French girls, Mondokini and Malati and Jyotirmayi were there. I'm there with a baby, and you know, like, so the whole plan was there, except I wasn't supposed to get arrested. I had to run away because you know, I didn't have a kid and mother in jail. So, you know, we're having this big argument in Trafalgar Square. Sure enough, the police swoop in and they had their paddy wagon. And, you know, me and Guru Das got away, but he was like standing back and he was taking pictures of everybody. And there was this picture where Mondokini was just so, and she still is, so angelic, you know, putting this little angel in the paddy wagon, you know. It gets on in the news, so people are interested, and the next day they go before the judge, so what's the problem? And then the arresting officer was trying to explain it, but he didn't even know what to say. So he asked back, so what were you doing? We were chanting the names of God. You know, we're trying to spread love of God. And he looks, and that's what you arrested him for? Dismissed. But like when we were, at one point, Shamsundar and I did do something previous to becoming devotees. And we had a court case, we appealed and we lost the appeal, so then suddenly we had to go to prison. So Shamsuni goes to Prabhupada and goes, Swamiji, Malati and I will have to go away for a while. For a while was like 5 years. They just said for a while. Shama said, Prabhupada, where are you going? What happened? He goes, Swamiji, we have to go to prison. Oh, that's all right. Krishna was born in prison. But the amazing thing was there were so many amazing things that happened. But after 24 days, we got released. And it was like nobody could understand it, even us. And we fly back down to San Francisco. And Mukunda was at the airport. How would he know? We didn't call or anything. But there was a lady that had a shop in Haight Street, and she opened another branch in Seattle. And Shamsundar had both shops. He had the word worked in it. So Mukunda would always call her. Her name was Peggy, just, any news. And she goes, they're on their way back down. They're going to land, and, so that way Krishna, let her know. And Prabhupada had just returned to San Francisco. So I think it was December 4th as we went in the 1st of December, 1st or 2nd. So quickly got some clothes on, went to Prabhupada, and I remember peeking in, and he goes, Malati, just last night I was thinking 5 years was too long. It was so funny because I read a little backstory. I'm in the prison, and I have a lady roommate. Every day she put on, quote-unquote, army clothes. We had uniforms, right? So she puts on her street clothes, and she goes somewhere. And finally, I just had to ask, you're not supposed to ask personal questions in prison, but finally, where are you going? What are you doing? And she goes, I'm on work release, I have a job. And wow, she's getting out to go. So I had the idea, wow, maybe I could do that too. So I got the head of the warden, chief warden, he comes, and I tell him, look, so this lady Peggy, she said it's around Christmas time, you need help. I said, would you hire me if I can get out? Yeah, definitely, So I said, look, can I get out on work release? And it was very vague, because if you had work release, you had 50% of what you made, you had to give to the prison. Just like, for your hostel, 50% of your risk. So, so the person goes, he says, if you're a prostitute or a drug-related offense, you don't get work release. Obviously, I was a prostitute, but drug-related, so can't get out. But then he goes, because you can see I just wasn't like the other prisoners, I was pretty clueless about it all. And he goes, write a letter to the judge and I'll personally do it. So I wrote this letter, dear, I forget the name, Judge so-and-so. I'm here in the prison now, and I'm realizing, so many things. But by your words, when we were sentenced, I changed my life. I don't do those things anymore. Of course, it was Prabhupada that, to say something to kind of. So your words changed my life. I don't do those things anymore. And now I'm married. That was interesting because we were also charged with illicit cohabitation because we were married. It was like, that was way back, right? So I said, so I'm married now, and I'm pregnant, and I'm in prison. My child will be born in prison. And the taxpayers are having to pay for my keep. But if I got this job, I could pay, it would. So I write that letter, and the judge agreed to it, that I could go out on work release. So that was really, that was good. And because I got paid, I hadn't got paid yet, but I was going to get paid. I had made money, and now I didn't have to give 50% because I got out. So I was getting ready to go to work, and this little short bulldog lady comes, and she goes, sign here, and I'm like, sign what? What is this? And she goes, I'm your parole officer, and it wasn't my idea. I wouldn't have approved of this, but the judge has ordered me released, so you'll be on parole. Wow, I signed really fast. So now suddenly I'm, out, I get a bus, and I go to Peggy's house, because it was the shop wouldn't be open yet. And I got off the bus earlier because it would loop around, but if you got off at this one side, just walk across this little field and you'd get into the back door of her place. So I go there were these sliding doors, and I looked, and there was Sean. He was in there, so he also got out. So because I had worked, was given some money, and in those days, if you were a student, you just showed the student ID and you got half off of your plane fare. Those were the days. So we go down to where the shop is. There was, what do you call, travel agency. And I just remember this first student-looking guy came by. Hey man, can I borrow your ID? I need to get, an emergency. I have to get down to San Francisco. Oh, sure. And he comes with me. We use his ID. We get the tickets. Like in those days, you didn't have to show ID. Like the fact that he had one name and it was a he didn't mean any you could do that. So we get the tickets, and we're flying down. So then we couldn't call Peggy, found out we're there. But Prabhupada said, I was just thinking last night, 5 years was too long. So then he could understand that. Maybe it wasn't understandable exactly, but Krishna had a hand in it because he was a pure devotee. And then he said to me, you see my suitcase? Go over there. He's saying to me, I brought you a sari. He had just come back from India. And he had gotten all the ladies, no one got many of us yet, saris. And he brought special red, like a satin cloth for Lord Jagannath, because up until this time, this was like in 67 December. Jagannath was installed in March 67, and he was just in his body, like the painted clothes. So then, second Rath Yatra, which was 68, he was dressed. Jumuna and Harshrani made dress. Prabhupada drew a little design how the dress should look, and the cloth that he brought was used for the first outfit of Jagannath.
Who sold the first outfit?
Jumuna and Harshrani. Yeah. And we had the first hand-pulled car with the canopy. Very kind of funky, but it was, because the first car was on the back of a flatbed truck. And that was Prabhupada's idea, by the way. He wanted to have the Rath Yatra, but it was like 2 weeks, he was using the actual Jagannath Puri Day. And so how can you get a big, huge cart made in 2 weeks? Literally, you probably couldn't. But Prabhupada was always like looking out the window, which overlooked the street. He was observing things, and he knew the neighbors. There were these like radical hippies called the diggers. They had a flatbed truck. He goes, get one of those flat trucks, and then you can build on the back. So there was like this, like a canopy like a cart, Jagannath, Subhadra, Baladev, but we didn't have them lined up. Like Jagannath was facing right, then Subhadra was facing back, and no, it was like Baladev facing right, then Subhadra, then Jagannath, And then there was a kirtan party, not under the canopy, but right behind it. And then there was a generator, and Shamsunder put the generator in the front seat of this flatbed truck. It was making a lot of noise, and as you know, generators emit fumes, and he practically died at the wheel before he realized he needed to open the window. I just read yesterday in the news, this family of 6, they put, there's a power outage up north, and they put a generator inside their house, and they're all dead. It's they can be wonderful, but you can't, you have to have them away from, your inside. Like one time in New Vrindavan, it was not that long ago, Tattva Darshan Prabhuji was the lodge manager. Everything went out, and he brings a generator into the lodge. And suddenly these people, and there was guests there, and suddenly they start freaking out. They're trying to kill us, they're trying to kill us because of all the fumes, and there was no lights, they couldn't see where to go, Oh, this is really, so winter's coming. If you need heat and the lights go out, don't use a generator inside.
Can you take any questions?
And just one thing, because it's really interesting, it's like, so Mukunda and George were having this conversation, it was like in 1980, and George was reflecting on Srila Prabhupada, and he says, when I first met him, I underestimated him. So years have gone by, and he's realizing more and more, like seeing how since his departure, the movement had just continued growing like anything. And the books were going out and more, and I underestimated him. And he was having these beautiful realizations of Srila Prabhupada's, the purity of his teachings and the effect of his teachings were not going to be limited by his disappearance.
Take some questions? Anyone want to ask anything? She's going to leave tomorrow, so this is your only chance.
I have a question. I was wondering. Hare Krishna, thank you so much for coming. I was wondering, obviously Krishna consciousness back in the 60s, 70s, quite different from, it's still Krishna consciousness, but Prabhupada is not here anymore.
He's not here? Where is he?
Physically, that's what I meant, but do you see a
I
difference?
should have Prabhupada, we got this early on, he explained to us the Vanya and Babu. And one time somebody was asking about his spiritual master, and he said, I'm always with him. He's always with me, Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sometimes philosophically, we sentiments philosophically, but
Right.
sometimes it's hard to have the realizations. I was going to ask, I don't know if my question is clear, it's something like, first of all, what are you doing now? And I don't know much about, what Prabhupada disciples do and stuff. I'm just wondering what you're doing now. And second is Krishna consciousness back in the 1670s and now. I know you say you don't see a difference, but do you see a difference as in how devotees are acting?
Oh, yes.
What they're doing?
Your opinion on
the standards?
Yeah.
The standards, is there any difference? And I
The standards are different depending on where you go. So those persons who are adhering clearly and are clear-minded about Prabhupada's presence and position in Iskcon, the standards are there, they're clear. And others, not so clear because somehow they think it's okay to change things,
Yeah.
But that was then. Anyway, yeah, there's some differences.
And my question is kind of like, how do you, I read Prabhupada's book. Even Prabhupada's book has so many different versions, or maybe a few versions. So
yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah. So how do you? I'm really inspired by Prabhupada, and I think he's very awesome. I wish I was born in the 60s and 70s so I could meet him and serve him and stuff like that. But I wasn't. There must be a reason. So how do you stick to this?
You're still able to serve.
Yes.
It sounds a little esoteric, maybe it sounds a little like what, but for example, you're offering group project, you're making obeisances. If you are conscious of what you're doing, it becomes more conscious and his presence is more there. I have seen people walk into a temple, go up to him and look at him and burst out into tears. Who is this person? And these were not devotee people. Who's this person? The impact is there.
Yeah.
one person who knew Vrindavan was like, goes, does he ever say anything? No. I said, oh, he says a lot. You see all those books over there? That's him.
Yeah, I was gonna say how does a devotee like stay true to his teaching as the age of Kali Yuga continues to progress and and it's hard.
You don't know Kali Yuga.
So we don't fall down, something like that.
Determination, perseverance, enthusiasm, patience.
Good point.
But read the books. Maybe they're not as fun as some of the new books. Read those books. Study those purports, especially the first canto. This was before he came to America. Read those purports and you're going to be like, this is today. But it was almost 60 years ago, so it was written 60 years ago. Spiritual knowledge is timeless. And, you study those purports, study those verses. First canto, Prabhupada told us in 67 July, everything I have to teach you is in these books. And at that point, that was the only book we had. So how important is that book, First canto? But then, of course, we should study, systematically study, go through, read those others. Listen to his lectures. It's hard, I think, sometimes for people because of the accent or whatever. Still, listen. There's so much media. Morning walks. Morning walks are amazing sources of little nuggets of information, because it's usually just Prabhupada and quite often leading devotees, so they'll be asking all these questions, and he's giving these answers, and you find real gems in there, real spiritual gems. Conversations. There's a whole series of conversations with people of all types, parents and famous scholars, and even sports people, and people like George, many with George, teachers, professors. So that way you get to know Srila Prabhupada. Although he was reputed as a scholar, he was considered the ambassador for Bhakti Yoga in the West. The first newspaper article written about him, Butler Eagle, I think, or Gazette, whatever, Butler Eagle. They introduced him as the ambassador of Bhakti Yoga to the West. He's a guru. So many titles, but he was a pure devotee of Krishna. So when he would speak about Krishna, or about Lord Chaitanya, or Radharani, Subhadra Baladev, he's speaking from a personal realization and relationship. It wasn't academic. So it's worth noting.
Thank you.
And listen to his kirtans. They're very pure. They're not flamboyant. They're not musical expeditions. They're deep. Especially if you've Googled Prabhupada vintage kirtans. So beautiful. If you listen to the kirtan that we recorded with George and the one that went out, you'll notice we first started singing, there were no instruments, and the hands clapped, and the kartal started, and the mridanga. Quite often with Prabhupada, sometimes we just use these as our instruments. Emphasis was on the mantra, was on the hearing the mantra. And the instruments Prabhupada described were there to accompany, to complement, but they weren't there to overtake or to showcase your fantastic ability to drum or play harmonium. They were there to accompany the mantra. So the mantra was the primary thing, and hearing and the chanting were the predominating features. So listen to Prabhupada's kirtans, listen to him chanting.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shiva, it's just a nickname given as
Okay.
Karna Sava. I was just wondering because, well, I'll just ask what has been the fruit of your spiritual life? You chose this life and now you experience. What has been the fruit of picking the spiritual path?
Under the guidance of a pure devotee, being able to distinguish between sat, real, and asat, what is unreal. And then being given the way to actually see like that and act like that. Like she mentioned, theoretical. Up and, we're all in that training stage. It's kind of like, okay, here it is, take the deities, here are the deities. The deities are Krishna. But we have to okay, that's Krishna. It's like, I'm seeing you, that's you right there. It should be the same when you're fully purified. There's Krishna. And we're seeing the deities, there's this little curtain, between us, this little pill between us, and that will be gone. You'll be seeing Krishna. You can speak to Krishna. You'll hear Krishna because he'll speak to you. And we've seen, there's been times Prabhupada, not in a public setting, devotees came in and he would be having a conversation with the deities. So it's kind of like when the philosophy becomes your reality, that is the perfection of the spiritual life. And we get glimpses of that, through chanting, through reading, through chanting, through hearing and chanting. Sometimes during kirtan, when it's just like everything just sort of dissolves and you don't know where you are, and it's just, you're actually hearing, and then suddenly some stupid thought breaks and kicks it out. But, when that becomes your permanence, one time somebody was asking Prabhupada, what's going to happen if everybody chants Hare Krishna? And Prabhupada said, don't worry, it won't happen. It's why? We're in the material world. This planet is a material planet. It has its designation. But Lord Chaitanya came to give a reprieve. Prabhupada's carrying that, taking that forward. And all of us, it's our obligation and duty and great joy to be able to assist. But this planet is a temporary place. It's not going to suddenly become an eternal place. But at the same time, when you enter Krishna's domain, like when we're in the temple, and we're really at least trying to consciously understand that, and you realize, I'm not just this used to be somebody's house, right? This was someone's house. They lived here. They did all the things people who and we're doing a lot of this. We cook, we eat, we dance, but it's Krishna's house. Therefore, it's not an ordinary zip code. It's not an ordinary residence. It's Vaikuntha, where the names of the Lord are being sung and chanted. So this sung and chanted also includes when we read Bhagavatam, Gita, or any of the other sacred scriptures. That's also kirtan. Explain. It's not just the Ganesha kartals and harmoniums. That's kirtan. Also speaking Bhagavatam Gita. So it's also kirtan. Glorifying the Lord. So when that more and more becomes our reality, we'll also be living that beautiful life. Prabhupada wrote in this one poem, the beautiful lives as Chaitanya has brought. Lord Chaitanya brought this movement forward. Gave us this beautiful life to live. It becomes a reality. Doesn't mean, overnight flip. But then that's why I say you need the patience, you need determination, and you need a little, but it's an accurate instruction, so you need determination, enthusiasm, utsama, need enthusiasm. If you don't have it, take it. It'll come, and patience. And sometimes Maya has a special trick up her sleeve. So that special trick of Maya, it's called discouragement. You feel discouraged. When that happens, you can be sure Maya is tapping in. So, pull back fast.
I got no question. As I told you, we'll have to celebrate Gita Jayanti today.
Yeah.
So, I know your history of coming to the movement is really from Wakunda and Jamuna telling you about Prabhupada, and you all just woke up to Krishna consciousness and went to San Francisco.
That was the real woke society.
Huh?
Nowadays they're talking about the woke society. When Prabhupada showed up, that was the real woke society.
Okay. When's the first time you actually read Prabhupada's books? I don't think you did, maybe it wasn't in the first year or so? You didn't see
No, but I knew the book before I knew Prabhupada.
Prabhupada's book?
First
The first
canto
Oh, you
in
did?
3 parts.
Oh, you had all
At the
three?
end of September '66, Mukunda said, I want to show, I was telling him yesterday how that happened. That was my first contact. And because of that first canto, the first volume, I wanted to meet him. I wanted to meet that author. I had met so many other people. And it was, nobody had anything. They just had mumbly-jumbly words, invented practices. Nobody brought anything authentic, what to speak of a book.
When did you first see the Gita?
In the conversation with George, Mukunda mentions how Prabhupada was so firm on not diluting things. And George resonated with that. He also understood that's what set him apart. And not only that, he was, as we say, walking his talk.
When did you first see the Gita? Prabhupada's Gita? I think it was the little
It was
bridge
the
one.
blue one. So that would have been, came out, when did it come out?
You were in London at that time, or?
We were in UK. We were kind of behind because, we didn't do shipping and stuff, so everything kind of came to us a little later. 68. But Prabhupada was still, Gita classes were going on, Bhagavatam classes were going on.
I won't take too much time. We could talk all day if we sit here. But
I think it's story where I did it all time.
we have breakfast for you there too.
That sounds like a good plan.
Oh, little big galley breakfast on the big, mostly this big galley temple, so. Poha and some other. She's actually the first big galley cook. She's cooking for Prabhupada and Mayapur. So. Shami ain't cooking. A little stove like that. It's a whole nother pastime. Her Grace Malati Prabhu Ki.
Gorbachev and Nikki, Divine Grace,